Hey friends, how's it going? If you're new here, my name's Harry and I'm a third year paramedic student studying at Victoria University in Australia. I'm also trying to get into medicine next year, so hopefully that all goes according to plan and I start. In this channel, I really just like to give a bit of tips and tricks and a bit of info about the application process for medicine in Australia, as well as just some help with the Gamsat. So this is going to be a one of three series of videos that it's just a little mini series essentially going over time management for the Gamsat in sections 1, 2 and 3. So this video will focus on time management tips that I've picked up for section 1. So let's get into it. So basically you have 70 minutes to answer 48 questions for the whole section, which comes out to about a minute 48 seconds per question. Now, I find that the big time constraints don't actually apply for section 1. They really start to come about in about section 2 and section 3. As of now, and the last couple of times that I sat the Gamsat, and since it's all going to be online now, I believe, I assume it'll stay roughly the same. But there's now no more reading time before the sections, which means that 6 minutes reading time that we'd use to kind of scan the first couple questions beforehand no longer applies. It's now a part of the actual testing. So that extra 6 minutes, right, equates to about an extra 12 seconds per question. Now that doesn't seem like much. However, if you're able to stockpile that 12 seconds throughout the course of the test by answering questions in the 1 minute 48 seconds that we've been given, you can then stockpile it and use it to allocate to a difficult question down the track that you might be struggling with. So the most optimal method that I have found for answering the questions in section 1 is that I allocate myself no more than about 30 seconds, and I use this 30 seconds to go through all the answers and the questions and then try and get a bit of a gauge of what exactly they want me to find within the text. After then reading those questions and answers, that's when I would go into the passage and I would start reading through the relevant sections that the questions wanted me to actually look through to find the answers. And I found that by doing this, it minimizes the amount of time wasted throughout the question, because I'm not reading a whole passage if I didn't need to. I'm not reading paragraphs if they weren't relevant. I was able to find exactly the sections that they wanted me to read, whether it's the paragraph or a quote or a line, and I can then devote most of my attention to that surrounding area to find the answers, and that just overall minimizes the amount of time wasted. So you go through this process, and once you reach about the 2 minute time mark, so that's including the extra 12 seconds per question for the 6 minute reading timer added, it's then time to move on. A little trick that I like to actually do throughout any test, so whether I'm doing section 3 or whether I'm doing section 1 or just any time poor test environment in general, I like to keep a little mental note of all the questions that I've easily answered, because naturally you're going through a test, you're gonna find questions that you just instinctively understand right away and you're able to answer much quicker than all the others and move straight through, which is fantastic. So it's good to take a little mental note of each time that you've nailed and flown through a question in that manner, so that when you get to a question that's a little bit more difficult or is something that you just need that little bit of extra time to kind of grasp and understand, then you can allocate yourself that extra time because you've made it up by acing questions earlier. So I find that it's good just to have a little bit of a mental note in the back of your head so that you're aware that you can actually give yourself that time if you need it. If you're not a fast reader, then this is good for you because it allows you extra time to actually read through the passages. Leading up to the test, probably the biggest tip I can give you to help with your overall time management is to practice speed reading and just read. If you're able to practice your speed reading and actually actively work on it and increase the speed that you can read, I guess, it will save you time overall in the whole test process, not just with section 1 but section 3 as well, because the quicker that you can actually read through the passages and read through the questions, the more time you give yourself to think through the answers and hopefully find the correct one. There's a few articles online that actually go through speed reading and the process of how to actively practice it. Tim Ferris actually does a pretty good video on it. So I'll link that down below in the bio if any of you guys want to give it a read, give it a watch and have a look over it. So that brings us to the end of this little mini series for Gamsat time management. So this is part 1 of a 3-part series where I will then go over sections 2 and section 3. So keep your eyes peeled for when I release them. I hope you got something out of this, and if you did, please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss when my next video is released. It also really supports the channel, so I really appreciate that. Feel free to leave a comment down below about some of the time management tips that you have implemented into your section 1, or maybe some ideas or tips that you plan to use, and I'll make sure to give them a look and give them a read over. Alright, thanks guys. Until next time, see ya.